no, 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 no. Go away. Go away. Go away!
Hey, you! Get out here! This is on you!
If you ever wanted your beautiful face caved in and your head turned into red paste by a 3-meter tall naked troll while his junk dangerously swings centimeters from your nose, then you are on the right path, my friend. The Outlast Trials is the game that can offer you just that and many more twisted and gnarly scenarios to scratch your itch for gore, body horror, team-based survival action, and other beautiful, devious and pleasantries. As a person who immensely enjoyed Outlast 1 and The Whistleblower and was dreadfully upset with Outlast 2, I was extremely excited to see what Red Barrels will come up with next, given their coming installment, The Outlast Trials, is to be solely focused on multiplayer co-op. Well, the game is available for purchase now, and you know what? I think they pulled it through. The game is extremely fun with friends, with randoms. Yeah man, it's fun with randoms too, most of the time. It could even be fun if you like to play solo. Keep in mind that the game is still in early access, the amount of content leaves a lot to be desired at first glance, and let's just say the Outlast Trials is not perfect, but most of my complaints are just due to personal preferences and might not apply to you. But most importantly, Outlast Trials is a co-op game, and co-op in Outlast Trials is balls to the walls fantastic.
Get up.
Look at me laying down among empty bottles. Bring me back my 2007. But is it worth spending 30 buckaroonies on it right now? Well, let's find out, shall we? The game is obviously set in the same universe as other Outlast related titles and takes place in the year 1959 during the Cold War era. You take control of a regent, one of the many people who were kidnapped and tricked into volunteering themselves as test subjects under the Murkoff Corporation's twisted experiments. Unlike other Outlast games, this time the playable character is customizable. Well, customizable, you can pick one of the 20 or something faces, a dozen haircuts, and that's pretty much it, at least for now. After playing through the tutorial, you are brought to the Murkoff facility that looks like a mental hospital or something. This facility will be your hub area for the entire game, and I'd like to say that this concept of being held in a mental institution along with other poor weirdos is quite appealing to me, and I don't even know why. Here you can meet other players, play an arm wrestling minigame with them, talk to NPCs given you've leveled up enough, and of course start your trials.
Hi.
Trials here are missions you can either play solo or as a group of 2, 3 and 4 regents. Gameplay loop in Outlast Trials is pretty simple. You do a trial, finish simple objectives like, I don't know, electrocuting a snitch to death or throwing babies in a meat grinder, while being almost constantly chased by X-Pops, or experimental population. That's how local freaks in Outlast Trials are called.
X-Pop, right there.
Once you are done with your assignments, you need to get back to the shuttle while everything around you turns into a shitstorm. It feels like every enemy on the map knows exactly where you are, and escaping, for example, a deranged psychopathic cop with a stun button by seconds gives you a decent dose of that sweet dopamine, alright.
That was beautiful.
It actually feels even better when, for instance, you successfully get into the shuttle and see one of your teammates bleeding out a few meters away from the extraction point. It is when you need to make a decision. You either stay inside in the safety of the shuttle or step up, get back out to pick their sorry arse up so you could escape together. By the end of the trial, your team is being evaluated by Murkoff's doctors. Every participant gets a personal grade that affects your team's grade. And I think this system works very well in Outlast Trials. It kind of forces you to perform acts of selfless camaraderie. Want to get a higher grade, hence bigger reward? Make sure all of you pathetic sobs get out alive. Seriously, it makes co-op in Outlast Trial fun even with randoms from different parts of the world speaking languages you've never heard of. During one of my first trials with a team of randoms, I was so They had to come back for me time and time again to pick me up or to revive me. I'm not sure if that was their best time gaming can offer, but it was incredibly wholesome and fun for me, that's for sure. And I paid it back to other randoms a few games later. And yeah, sometimes you get high-level Mr. Sweatpants know-it-alls in your team that already know every map inside and out and just storm through towards the objective. Despite the fact that players like that make me sick.
You make me sick!
I can't blame them really. The game does get repetitive after a while, so to avoid your fun time being ruined by tryhards and professionals, I recommend finishing every trial solo on the easiest difficulty to familiarize yourself with the map and the objectives. Of course, that stands only for those who have no friends.
That's a pause.
To play with. And speaking of playing solo, make sure to bring your piss bucket with you or something, because missions in Outlast Trials are very long if played solo, and there's no pause option. My very first Kill the Snitch run took me 80 something odd minutes to finish. And let me be fair and transparent, I had to go change my undies afterwards, but for all the wrong reasons. I want to pee so bad. Anyways, the topic of this video is not my niche. I mostly focus on Souls-like games content, but I occasionally sneak in some other reviews of the games I'm passionate about. So if you want to see more from me, subscribe to the channel. It will help me heaps. Also, there's a giveaway thing going at the moment. You can win a copy of Armored Core 6 by simply subscribing, watching my Dark Souls video essay, and leaving a comment under the video. The link is in the description. Check it out.
Cheers, mate.
While doing a trial, you can find various items to help you survive long enough to escape. Beer bottles and bricks are throwables used to distract enemies or briefly stagger them and make your escape. Medicine to heal your wounds. Lockpicks to, well, pick locks. Adrenaline syringes that make you run faster and longer for a period of time. Antidotes to regain your sanity. And of course, batteries to recharge your night vision goggles. Most of the mechanics in the Outlast Trials will be familiar to you if you played other Red Barrels titles. Maintaining your sanity would be a new mechanic though. At random points throughout every trial, the pusher will merge from distinct steel double doors.
Hello? Here to spray for the roaches.
The pusher under most circumstances can't harm you physically, though he will spray you with noxious gas draining your sanity meter, triggering psychosis. Psychosis can be fatal if you don't have an antidote handy, not only because during the psychosis episode you are being chased by a phantom-like entity called the Skinner Man who drains your health, but also because you most of the time start panicking and running around like a headless chicken, triggering more traps and getting slapped around by other enemies. Another new thing added to the game is rigs. You can purchase rigs after reaching a certain level with your regent. Rigs are helpful devices with various effects. For instance, you can get a rig that lets you see enemies through walls, or there's one that is a throwable that stuns or blinds enemies. At the moment there are 4 rigs in total, and it's really cool when every member of your team has a different one, given they know how to use them. There are also prescriptions. Prescriptions are permanent upgrades that make your regent stronger and more efficient. In the Outlast Trials you still can't fight back, but this time, with the right prescription you can at least kick enemies in the dick when they grab your friends, for example, or run faster or slide, which makes survival a bit more manageable, and you don't feel like a complete space waster. Another new thing is amps. Amps are pretty much additional passive skills that can be used to your advantage. There's one called double doses that will let you use syringes 2 times instead of 1. Or quick escape that boosts your stamina and speed after taking damage, and so on and so forth. You get Murkoff dollars for finishing trials you can spend on customizing your region's looks and your holding cell. Yes, you have your own cell and you can decorate it to your liking. The first thing I bought for myself was a trumpet. I always wanted to learn how to play a trumpet and make ska songs, but I never did. This trumpet will stand as a monument of my laziness and will be a constant reminder of me slacking off on my passions. The Outlast series is known for its antagonists. In Outlast 1 and The Whistleblower we had Chris Walker and Eddie Gluskin, respectively. In Outlast 2 we had Marta and Val. Here we have Leland Coyle, an extremely violent policeman that fancies electrocuting regents, mannequins and his own crutch. And Mother Gooseberry, a mad children's show host with a split personality disorder that manifests in the form of her malformed duck puppet, Dr. Futterman.
Oh, Dr. Futterman, you are such a card!
This is, f***ed up. Yeah, I know it sounds like a crackhead's fever dream, but hey, it's Outlast. Just like the other game's antagonists, the ones in the trials are gnarly, disgusting, unsettling, extremely charismatic and have big personalities and their own sad, sick and twisted backgrounds.
You see what happens when children try to grow up before their time.
You can learn more about them and how they became who they are by collecting evidence folders during the trials in a well-known Outlast fashion. I'm not going to spoil anything story-wise in case you want to check it out yourself. And speaking of the story, the game has bits and bobs of lore scattered around, but it doesn't feel like it's enough. So here's hoping there will be more lore added gradually towards the game's full release. Also, there's no campaign-like storytelling, so far at least. Visually, the Outlast Trials look astonishing. You're looking at it right now, almost photographic. The game has a ray tracing option that can be set to low, medium and high, and it makes the experience so much more immersive. Don't worry though, it's optional and can't be turned off entirely. Sound design is also top-notch. Enemies bantering, glass breaking and crunching under your feet, your heart beating out of your chest when the enemies are getting closer.
Oh, you bitches!
The music is also really good and sets the mood just right. Uncanny Valley. And since we're talking about the game with a psychological horror tag, it might actually be worth talking about how scary the game is. Well, I think it's not scary per se. I mean, there are jump scares here and there, but as you've probably already guessed, the co-op aspect steals most of the horror. And it's not necessarily a bad thing in my opinion. The game does a very good job keeping you under pressure and at the ready constantly. You might not be scared, but you will be biting a crowbar in half with your arsehole on more than one occasion. I don't know if it's really necessary to mention, but the game, just like its predecessors, has a lot of grimy, greedy, disgusting stuff in it, and it's all very graphical. But again, you probably know that already. That is so f***ing wrong. Wrong. Some probably might get annoyed by the amount of penises, decapitated bodies, and overall absurdly macabre vibe, but again, hey, it's Outlast and you're getting what you paid for. You should know by now what kind of content Red Barrels produce. You can play the game with mouse and keyboard or with a controller. I personally prefer mouse and keyboard in games where you have to aim and that are in first person, but the controller option is there if you want it. It's fully operational, and it's okay if you play first person games with a controller. I respect your opinion even when it's wrong. Bottom line is, the game works wonderfully both for mouse and keyboard chads and controller goblins. Everyone has a place here. Video game review in 2023 can't be considered complete if we don't on a game's performance, shake fists at a cloud, and say that big billion-dollar corporations have no respect for us gamers. Shut up! But you know what? Nothing to on here. I still want to shake my fist at a cloud saying, "See, EA, that's how you release a game in 2023. Seriously, the game runs like a knife through butter, and I haven't experienced any bugs whatsoever. It's extremely polished, and it's not just good enough for an early access game, it's extremely polished, period. Some players report getting stuck in textures from time to time, but that never happened to me and I'm like 20 plus hours in. I've also seen a lot of complaints about the lack of the FOV slider, so if you are a motion sick bun, do proper research first, it might not work for you. Other than that, the game is fantastically optimized and runs very well. My specs, as always, are in the description. Really man, the Outlast Trials can and should be set as an example of a serviceable, polished release. Props to Red Barrels. What worries me though is the game's replayability value. There are currently 3 programs available, each one of them having 3 versions of the same trial, read 3 difficulties, and a couple of smaller missions called MK challenges. Again, I know that the game is in early access and it's kinda silly to complain about the amount of content, but still, I personally want to keep playing the Outlast Trials more and more, and I can see myself eventually getting bored with what we have right now. What's really good though is that every time you replay any trial, items, traps and shortcuts are randomly placed, and that gives you at least some element of surprise. But it'd be cool if there was an option to skip a cutscene before a trial. They do look stylish and immersive, but also they become annoying after the 10th or so time. And though I'm not worried about the game lacking content on the full release, I can't help myself but be anxious about the direction Red Barrels might take. Is the Outlast Trials worth buying now? If you are an Outlast fan, you most likely won't be disappointed. It's Outlast but multiplayer with a strong emphasis on teamwork, and you can easily squeeze 15 to 20 hours or more out of it if you are playing with friends or randoms. If you are a fan of Outlast but don't like multiplayer, you'll be able to enjoy the game playing solo, but the trials take a long time to finish, there's no pause option, and if you die 3 times, you lose and have to start all over again. If you are scared of getting bored quickly, hold your horses and wait for the game to have more meat on the bones. And if you are not a fan of Outlast, I'm honestly surprised you made it this far. The game now has an overwhelmingly positive review count on Steam, and that means something. Numbers don't lie. But when something starts to smell like cash, there's a good chance it eventually will turn into Fortnite.
Don't do this!